go back to that other song. Okay, I might actually start now though. I'm just gonna ramble. Probably won't read chat too much. But I guess since you're here, Eli, I don't know if you're gonna stay or not, but I'll go ahead and start with Blaziken. Because like I said, I saw Rob posted a video earlier showing someone using Blaziken, and I really wanted to talk about it after that. Let me get things ready. I'll just go back to this for now. Okay, so let's see. Where do I want to start with this? Maybe I'll start saying Blaziken was actually a really good figure for players to get early on, because this is one of the few figures that they put in the shop for gems. They had the Gen 3 starters, Sableye, and Altaria. So you could buy it for 500 gems and get the full evolution line plus the Mega. And I think Blaziken was probably the best one for beginners to get. We'll start with Combusken. So the main draw of Combusken and Blaziken, of course, is Cyclone Kick. So this is one of the few purple moves that actually gets you advantage or affects the board in that way. So it moves the opponent to the PC. So this ignores knockout effects, which means something like Dawn Wings can't change forms. Something like Primal Kyogre can't do that as well. And it's 3-star, and that's really important because, as everyone knows, because Dawn Wings is the best figure in the game and has all 2 stars, the fact that you have a 3-star purple to beat that and go through its knockout effect is really incredible. And Weak Spot Kick itself is also pretty good, and Combusken actually stayed pretty relevant because of stuff like Celebi. Although, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, because Celebi would have Grass Sphere, so it wasn't affected by Cyclone Kick. But Weak Spot Kick, yes, it's only 60 damage, but you give your opponent weight 4, which means that figure essentially can't do anything for at least 2 turns. And so most people would run Combusken into Blaziken, just because Cyclone Kick is so good at 4-star, you may as well have it, or excuse me, it's so good at 3-star, you may as well evolve and get 4 stars on Blaziken. Straight off, I will say this now, and this is why I used Blaziken for a long time, mostly before Megas were even out, but using Blaziken is pretty frustrating because it's wheel. Most of the time you only want to hit Cyclone Kick, and the same thing for Combusken. Most of the time you only want to hit Cyclone Kick, and so this figure is really reliant on using Double Chance to respin. It's just one of those wheels that's very inconsistent. Like I said, Cyclone Kick is mostly what you want to land. Jet Kick is sometimes good. It depends who you're going against. Against something like Dawn Wings, it's fine. But it's such low damage that, you know, you have 3 decent moves, but you usually only want one of them, and the other 2 usually lose you the battle. And so that's why I stopped using Blaziken, mostly because of that, because I was tired of just relying on Double Chance. But looking past that, well, I'm sort of jumping around here, but that's why I said yesterday stuff like Palkia and Dawn Wings are such good attackers, because they don't mind landing other moves, even if you don't get exactly what you want, because they don't lose too much from that. Oh, you didn't use Blaziken at all, weird nerd? Weird nerd. Yeah, it's pretty volatile, if that's the right word to use. Because either you get Cyclone Kick, which you usually want, and Jet Kick is very good too. I'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, so this is a figure that relies pretty heavily on double chance. And so that's why I think it wasn't used too heavily in like really high rankings. But let's look more at its strengths at least. So I kind of wish I had some notes so I could structure this better. But so Blaziken is an attacker that has trouble attacking, or it's risky to attack with, outside of using double chance. So then how is it for your opponent to attack into? And I think that's kind of one good thing about this figure. Whoops. And it's sort of the thing that a lot of multicolored wheels have, is that your opponent can't always win with everything. Now, except for like Palkia. Palkia doesn't care about anything you do with 4D drive. I'm going back and forth a lot. But it is actually somewhat risky to attack into Blaziken, which works out in its favor. But Cyclone Kick is essentially always what you would level up, so it would be 33. So you have roughly a 1/3 chance to land it. But Jet Kick is actually a very good move. Obviously what holds it back is the fact that it only does 20, 30 if you're evolved. But having a relocation move like this, although it's not optional, which does hurt it, I suppose. But you can win games off of Jet Kick. It's not reliable, but you can. And I would, maybe later in the game, I think I may have reduced Flare Blitz instead of reducing Jet Kick, just for that option. Because it doesn't matter how low damage your gold is. If it's a gold, it still wins against purple. But I think really what helps Blaziken push forward a little bit, and I was planning on using Blaziken later in the game, but just ended up not doing it, is the Mega. So Blaziken itself, it doesn't have an ability, it can't move through stuff. It's a decent attacker, but usually takes your double chance. But Mega Blaziken fixes most of that. So if you evolve from Combusken, you're hitting, what is it, you're hitting 170 with Flare Blitz and 90 with Jet Kick. And like I said with Mawile yesterday, hitting 170 is that's really high. Even if you're just coming from Blaziken, it's 160, which is pretty decent. So you have a really strong wide attack, and your Jet Kick at least gets a buff, and it's a larger wheel slice as well. But one thing I think a lot of people, and I agree with this, is that Wall Crusher, it is essentially worse than Cyclone Kick. So Cyclone Kick just moves the battle opponent to a PC, but Wall Crusher only moves a Pokemon past the battle opponent. So we'll read it. Moves one opposing Pokemon that is adjacent to the battle opponent to its PC. The battle opponent gains weight 3. And so usually, I want to bring up the board. So usually, oh, I realized I was drawing on it, but I didn't even switch the scene. So usually you want to clear out things on the board, and regular Blaziken can do that with Cyclone Kick, but because it can't move through stuff, it has a hard time pushing through your opponent's backline. And this is where Mega Blaziken's ability really helps it come up a bit, is that if your opponent is defending here, well, anywhere really, you have the option to jump over and you burn this figure when you do that, so you're essentially getting another plus 10 damage. So you're kind of hitting 180 if you burn. But doing this, you can either hit your 180 Flare Blitz and, you know, potentially KO this, or you can hit Wall Crusher, give it weight 3, and then this figure is stuck here for a bit, or you can hit Jet Kick, which moves you 2 spaces and you can potentially take the goal. And having 3 decent options like that is really helpful. Now I will say Mega Blaziken kind of wants double chance as well. But I think the way its wheel is structured, it's a little bit friendlier to attacking outside of a double chance. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Gotta reopen that now. Okay, so, but I think what I like most about Blaziken is, and while I think having Cyclone Kick on the Mega would be good, I think because it's already on Blaziken itself, it feels, it's not redundant, but I like that Mega Blaziken has different options. So if your opponent, I'm always on the wrong color. If your opponent's on the goal and there's nothing else around it, then you just want Blaziken to Cyclone Kick. But if there's something else here, then having Wall Crusher is much better. Like having this option to pick either or based on the situation makes it a lot more flexible than some other figures. Some figures, like I was talking about Mawile yesterday, Mawile has the option to Corkscrew Crash or just straight up attack with big damage. So it has options for different situations like this. So Z moves can make up for that. But if a figure doesn't have a different Z move like that, then having these 2 different moves for 2 different situations is really beneficial. And that's why even Mega evolving and going for a Jet Kick against this figure here is a valid play as well. And I think maybe something that would help a Blaziken focus deck is, even though most people had it anyway, but I think Celebi really benefits Blaziken because you go for so many risky attacks with Blaziken. Being able to rewind and reverse the turn like that with Celebi, I think is a big plus for this figure. So you have a figure. I guess I'll just recap it because I want to talk about some other stuff too. One sec. So you have a figure with an extremely good purple in Cyclone Kick. And like I said, this is 4-star if it's evolved. So you're essentially not losing to anything. Any other purple move, I mean. But despite it being double chance reliant, I think Blaziken is still pretty viable outside of that because like I said, it's hard for your opponent to attack into it as well because they risk losing to Cyclone Kick or potentially giving you an advancement with Jet Kick. You do get weight with Jet Kick, but the other really nice thing about Blaziken is its fighting type. And there weren't too many fighting types in that you would see in really high play. You would see Lucario, of course. You would see Marshadow. You used to see Pheromosa when Ultra Beasts were new. Is that it? That's basically it. I'm probably missing something else. Keldeo. Yeah, you see Keldeo a lot. But because you're fighting type, you have access to Mighty Sphere. Where is it? There you are. So when Mighty Sphere is up, if you surround with a fighting type, like as long as it's just one fighting type within the surround, then you get to take your opponent's figure into your PC. And that's essentially removing it from the game for your opponent. It's almost a +2 if you're trying to look at economy for that, because your opponent loses a figure on the board, but they don't get anything back from their PC, and you potentially get something back from your PC. So you're cycling your PC faster, you're preventing your opponent from using that. Like, I think Mighty Sphere, outside of Grass Sphere, I want to say Mighty Sphere was the best type-specific plate. Could be wrong. I need to look through them again. But Jet Kick can set that up for you, and you have the Mega, which lets you move through stuff in order to get more surrounds that way. And Wall Crusher helps with that as well, because if I move over and I hit Wall Crusher, that gives me time to move something else here to surround. So even if I can't advance any further, like you're blocking me too much, I can still possibly set up more surrounds with that and gain more advantage. Yeah, I don't think Blaziken was overlooked. I definitely think the fact that it was so reliant on double chance did hurt it. Now, obviously, you know, you can get lucky. You can roll Cyclone Kick or Jet Kick, whichever one you need every time. But that doesn't always happen, of course. But still, a very good figure. And definitely viable in high rank play as well. Just because, like I said, it's versatile enough to give you options in different situations. All right, maybe I'll talk about something else. There was something else I should have mentioned yesterday, so I'll do that in a sec. So I should have brought this up yesterday when I was talking about Mawile, and that's Takeaway. So Steelix was everywhere. This is another figure that you saw in most games, or at least out of 10 games, you saw at least one Steelix, I'm sure. I'm mostly just going to talk about Takeaway right now, though. I might talk about Steelix a bit more some other time. But Takeaway, this might actually be... So I mentioned yesterday that Moongeist Speed might be the best move in the game, but I think Takeaway is another really good contender for that. If the battle opponent's MP is the same or higher than this Pokemon's MP, the battle opponent moves to your PC. If it does, this Pokemon moves to the bench. And this is what I was saying with Mighty Sphere, except it's even more true here. If I land Takeaway, my opponent loses access to this figure, and it cycles my PC faster. So I can potentially get a figure back sooner than I would otherwise. And Steelix goes to the bench, so I can just reuse it. I'm pretty sure the only other figures that have Takeaway are Drifloon and Drifblim. I believe it's just these three. Thankfully, because this is a ridiculous move, and Takeaway is very annoying. Yeah, I mostly just wanted to bring that up, that Mawile also ignores Takeaway, which was another beneficial thing. So I didn't care about Dawnwings, Palkia, Garchomp, or Steelix for the most part. Obviously I could still lose that, but I wasn't afraid of Takeaway, at least. Okay, there was something I was trying to come up with what I wanted to talk about earlier, and this isn't a figure that I think was very good. It definitely wasn't. Most people, maybe used it when it first came out, and dropped it somewhat soon after, and that's the UX Darkrai. Sorry, one second. So, EX Darkrai really never went anywhere. But UX Darkrai came out, and some people messed around with it. You're sad they never gave us the Bidoof. I think a lot of people are. So Darkrai, we'll read through what it can do first. This Pokemon can MP move over a non-flying type Pokemon on the field. While this Pokemon is on the field, the asleep condition is not removed by the effects of abilities. If this Pokemon is not affected by a special condition, sleeping Pokemon within 2 steps of it cannot be tagged. So this has a few things. Moving over non-flying type, this became not really the norm, but this became a lot more common later in the game. They made figures move over only non-flying types. I'm not sure why they did that, because flying types weren't really in the meta that much. But Celebi, Victini, they had this non-flying type thing, and I think Savali as well. But either way, moving over non-flying types is very good, because like I said, there weren't too many flying types that you would see. I think Celesteela is probably the flying type that you would see the most, maybe? I would have to look at everything. But regardless, most things weren't flying type. So you at least have a mobile figure. When it's not on the field, the sleep condition is not removed by abilities. This is mostly... well, this affects a few things. It means Tapu Koko can't remove sleep with its ability. Because I think... yeah, Pokemon within 2 steps of Tapu Koko get the sleep condition removed. But also it means Suicune can't remove it when it comes out on the field. Chikorita does the same thing. But mainly, I think a lot of people saw this and they were like, yes, this is just like Kyurem except for sleep. Pokemon, if it's not affected by a special condition, your opponent can't tag sleeping Pokemon within 2 steps. And that's pretty good. The unfortunate thing is that sleep just wasn't as good as freeze, because it didn't have as many figures to take advantage of it. Like sleep didn't have Alolan Vulpix. Sleep didn't have Frostlass. And that's essentially just what made freeze better, was those 2 figures along with Kyurem. But it's also that Darkrai has a hard time putting things to sleep itself. I think if this figure, if Dark Void was better, this figure would have seen a bit more play. But this is a 1-star purple that only gets the opponent to sleep if they spin a white. That's really, really lackluster, and it just doesn't cut it. Because there's too many figures that have gold, too many figures that have purple, a 2-star purple I should say. Like, a 1-star purple only works against white, and then it only puts you to sleep if they spin a white after that too. So it's just way too unlikely. But really, and I guess I wasn't going to talk about this too much, I mostly just wanted to bring up the fact that it has a 100 damage spatial rend. And I think out of the figures that have spatial rend, so I'm pretty sure it's just this and the 2 Palkia. That would make sense. EX Palkia does 130, UX Palkia does 170, but I think it having 100 is a little bit more significant, because there were a decent amount of figures that have 100, or a decent amount of figures that saw a lot of play that have 100, one of which was Palkia itself. Its 4D drive does 100. Now obviously, this is a big caveat, and that's that chain levels can affect this a lot. So it's really specific, but I think Darkrai does have some potential because of this. I don't want anyone to think I'm saying this is good, but I think it is at least somewhat significant that it has 100, because the other thing that I was going to bring up is Lucario. And when you were at a certain rating, most people would have Lucario at 109 or 110. It used to be 109 before Zoroark got nerfed, just to make sure you didn't lose the cross counter. But after that, most people just bumped it up to 110 so that they would beat other Lucario. Where is it? So this is a figure that a lot of people had 110 on their Metal Claw. So I think if you were running, like if you wanted to use Darkrai, like this could potentially be. I feel bad about saying this because I think some people might take this the wrong way, but I'm not saying this is good, but I thought it was significant that it has 100 Spatial Rin, because that means if you chain it to fit what most people are chaining their Lucario or their Palkia, you can exclude those figures just with Darkrai. And this doesn't have to be run in a sleep deck to get that. Oh yeah, the Bidoof is there. It's UX. Everybody's favorite. And I think the Dark Z move is actually pretty nice. It's definitely not the best. I think it's sort of middle in the road when it comes to Z moves, but at least denying your opponent Z gauge is pretty nice. And it does a decent amount of damage, but like I was saying, I think if you were using Darkrai, you would only chain the Spatial Rin, so Dark Pulse is probably stuck at 160, which isn't bad, but that means you tie or you probably lose to Primal Kyogre and anything else that hits 160, of course. But I was looking at this and I was thinking, you know, like what would you even run this with if you were trying to do this? And like I said, I don't think sleep decks were incredible. They weren't bad for sure, but I think they had a lot of trouble dealing with other stuff. But I just decided to look at like what other figures could do sleep, and I think Popplio is probably like the best thing you can run. But then I also started looking at Malamar. Where are you? I'm just gonna do this. This probably wouldn't be a deck, you know. I mean, maybe you could run it for fun, but I'm mostly looking at Malamar on its own right now because its ability. I never used Malamar, so I didn't really consider what all its ability could be used for. But I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit today too. I'm going over a bunch of random stuff, honestly. So for effects that move this Pokemon's battle opponent, you decide whether it is used, which Pokemon is targeted, and where the targeted Pokemon will be moved to. So this was made way back in response to Deoxys, because Deoxys with Cosmo Energy could switch with any other Deoxys, and it was really annoying to deal with. So they made Malamar to try and help. You know, you could choose to have them not switch, like if you attack the speed form, that you could potentially KO it, or you could attack into one of the attack forms and then switch it with a speed form because you got to control it. But I didn't see Malamar much after that. And so I'm not entirely sure what all its ability can affect. So I think it does work on Garchomp or anything with Sand Veil. I could be wrong, but I think it does work. So if Malamar attacks into a Garchomp, normally they can just jump over and no battle will happen, but I think Malamar can actually attack a Garchomp without it doing that. And I was thinking about Palkia, because I don't know if you can cancel Palkia's ability with this. I really want to test this. If everything is the same in the remake when it comes out, I really want to test this because I'm curious. I don't think Malamar is meta for sure. Mostly because Psycho Cut holds it back. If Psycho Cut was a better move, then maybe. Because Mass Hypnosis is pretty good. And you get an easy evolution from Inkay, just when it moves from the PC to the bench. So you have a good 3-star purple, but Psycho Cut just, it doesn't cut it. But like I said, I want to know if this affects Palkia. Because if you can Z-move a Palkia with this and KO it, can you select no when it moves to an entry point? I don't know if you can, because it's not an ability that you activate or that you have control over. It's just an automatic thing. Yeah, Weird Nerd. That as well. Moving to a PC, because some things do that as well. Like there's a lot of things that I'm not sure if Malamar affects it or not. I don't know. I don't think you can control Z moves. Like if Malamar gets hit by a Corkscrew Crash, I don't think you can control that because then Malamar isn't on the field anymore. I don't know. That's something else I would want to test. One sec, I need some water. Yeah, I think Malamar is really interesting just because of this. Now, this also affects Zoroark. So before it was nerfed. Oh, actually, yeah, that's another thing I forgot about. I thought about this earlier. Malamar has decent matchups against stuff in rush decks. So let's see. We'll look at Keldeo first. So you could at least prevent Keldeo from using Water Jump. And like this is definitely one of the most annoying figures in Rush. But then there's also Poipole. Poison. So I believe I'm not sure because I never saw this either, but I think Malamar can prevent Ultra Portation from going off. I don't know. I really don't know. And Rendezvous is a move effect as well from Celesteela. I don't know, because it's not, like I said, it's not something that's optional, it just happens. So I don't know if Malamar can affect that or not. Hmm. Yeah, Vibrava definitely helped against Rush. And that was something I brought up yesterday with Mawile, is it ignores a lot of those movement things too. Um, like you can't get hit by kick away from Ponyta, Ultra Portation doesn't work, Hydro Kick doesn't work. Yeah, Vibrava was a really strong figure. I guess we can talk about that too since you brought it up. Yeah, so preventing your opponent from attacking like that's absolutely incredible. It just means that your opponent, if they're moving around Vibrava, it means that they can't do much outside of just move up a little bit. They can't attack. I think I don't know how much Vibrava would have been used if it didn't have Tectonic Rage, because this is the other thing that made this figure good, is just the fact that it has such a really strong ability, but it can also get KOs. And I think that's actually something Thunderous does a little bit as well. Where are you? Electric. So Thunderous has a similar ability. It's not exactly the same, because you can still move past Thunderous, but if you stop next to Thunderous, you can't attack. So this is another figure that does something similar to Vibrava. And I don't know how many people remember this, but for like a week, after some update, Thunderous had Hurricane instead of Shockwave. And I don't know how they messed that up. It was patched eventually to go back to Shockwave, but it having Hurricane actually made it a lot better. Okay, so I talked about Blaziken, I talked about Darkrai, a little bit about Malamar. Maybe that's it for today. I want to do some other things. Some things I want to talk about. Maybe I should probably give myself a bit more notes. I was a bit all over the place today and paused a lot. So maybe I'll try to be a little bit better about that. Somehow yesterday seemed a lot smoother. I was just talking about, mostly because I was talking about my deck, which I had a lot of experience with. Yeah, that's probably it for today, though. Some things I would like to talk about. I'm really interested in Abomasnow. Maybe I'll talk about it some. And always I can talk about the meta figures. Maybe even Dialga, since I talked a bit about Palkia. I can discuss Dialga a bit more as well. But that's probably it. Thanks for coming here, Weird Nerd. I'm sorry, I don't interact with the chat a whole lot, but I'm glad you were here. I really appreciate that. But that's it. I'll go ahead and end it now then.